Recently, someone asked me what qualifies me as a survival expert. Well, that's a good question, and here is my answer. I was born in 1957, and so my childhood was during the 1960s. For those of you under 50, yes, those days were just as wonderful as you imagine. It was another world compared to the non-stop shit show we see today. But there was one dark undercurrent: nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis happened when I was just 5 years old, and for the next 30 years, my generation had the sword of Damocles over our heads in the form of a nuclear Armageddon. As children, we were bombarded with thousands of news stories, movies, and TV shows predicting a post-apocalyptic dystopian future. Even as a child, I was determined to survive, and so I started to become a survivalist. First, I became a Cub Scout to learn about the outdoors, and a couple of years later, I signed on to an Outward Bound program. I have never ceased to sing the praises of this program, where, for 3 weeks, fall, winter, and spring, we went to a camp in Algonquin Park. There we were taught a wide range of wilderness skills, such as how to build a fire, a shelter, how to canoe and perform a canoe-over-canoe rescue. We went hiking and camping and exploring caves and even rappelled down a cliff. We learned how to make trail mix, bake bread on a stick, and pie in an earth oven. They even taught us how to shoot a bow and arrow, and, unheard of today, how to shoot a rifle. As soon as I turned 18, I bought my own rifle, unbeknownst to family and friends, since most Canadians are terrified of firearms. I graduated the program when I was 15 and made my first solo trip into the bush. To this day, I make an annual pilgrimage to Algonquin Park to spend a few days alone in the wilderness. My experience with the Outward Bound program landed me a job as an outtripper for the Toronto Boys Home, a halfway house for troubled teens getting out of juvenile detention. Based in the camp outside Algonquin Park, my job was to take 6 teens and 1 counselor into the wilderness for a week-long canoe expedition and teach them basic bushcraft. Later, I taught an orienteering course at the Cold Creek Conservation Area and worked on the hobby farm in the Albion Hills Conservation Area. During the next few years, I traveled the world, backpacking through Europe twice and driving across the continental U.S. and Canada twice. I climbed Aberdeen Mountain near Lake Louise, Alberta, the Flatirons outside Boulder, Colorado, and the Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. I took a break from my travels to attend college, where I started pre-med courses, and as a way of learning more about medicine, I took classes to get my St. John Ambulance Instructor Certificate and began teaching at the 57th Brigade in Brampton. I was responsible for teaching all the first aid and CPR courses, as well as certifying police cadets and the local fire department. I also participated in, and later went on to organize, disaster simulation exercises involving first responders and volunteer ambulance personnel. I was even awarded 2 public service awards for my work. After 3 years, I quit college and left my job at St. John and traveled to the Far East, where I spent 4 years traveling through Southeast Asia studying martial arts. 2 of my teachers were also Chinese medicine doctors, and I added a few of their techniques to my medical lore. Since returning from China, I have taught martial arts to this day. I never stopped learning. I learned how to trap beaver and shoot a shotgun from a licensed trapper. I learned Krav Maga and Tai Chi here in Canada. I studied military strategy And my first book is on Chinese military strategies. That was recommended reading at the Annapolis Naval Academy and West Point. I next wrote the book, The Art of Urban Survival, that contains much of the knowledge and skills I had learned, including my study of psychopaths and human evil that I turned into the viral video documentary, Defense Against the Psychopath. I have written dozens of articles and videos on survival, spoke at prepper conventions, and been interviewed dozens of times on radio and TV. I also studied history and society and created several videos that have accurately predicted the current downfall of civilization. Everything I write about and teach is based on personal experience. I don't regurgitate what others have written and done. I only teach what I have personally lived and tested. So, after 50 years of training and research, I feel confident to call myself a survival expert. We are now on the precipice of a global disaster of epic proportions. Survival should be the primary concern of every person today. The wisdom I have acquired is now more valuable than ever before and could save your life. The reason I've made this video is to offer you my knowledge and advice through personal talks. I tailor my advice to your situation, where you live, what resources you have, how many people in your group or family, whether you live alone in an inner-city apartment, in the suburbs with a large family, or in a house in the country. There are many options and strategies for you to survive in each environment. I have already given over a dozen talks, and I always ask my clients if they felt they received value from my advice. The reviews have been glowing, but there were two answers everyone gave me that I was somewhat surprised to hear. The first was they felt a lot less lonely after speaking to me. That it was a relief to talk with someone that got it. Those of us who are aware find ourselves isolated and alone because there are so few of us and we seldom have a chance to talk with like-minded people. The second answer is they feel less anxious. We are all under a lot of stress. Most people I know are having anxiety and panic attacks. One of the best ways to combat anxiety is knowing you will be okay. And knowing you'll be okay involves having a plan. A plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. I can help you make such plans. And once you know how many options you have available and what you can do to stay safe and comfortable, a lot of the fear dissipates. If you would like to talk, or if you'd like to invite a few of your friends and have a conference call, check the link in the description below. These are trying times, and we all need help sometimes. Thank you.